Afternoon, y'all.
Good afternoon.
There's a little bit of news I just posted for you in the chat. So at that point, what that means is the Electoral College, it votes today. So the only possibility for changing any outcomes would have to take place in Congress now. Very, very, very small chance of that happening. Actually, let me see, there is another piece of interesting news today that's historic. And I'm going to show that to you. This is the second major league team that has done this. Cleveland's baseball team will drop its Indian team name. So it's no longer going to say the Cleveland Indians. And their mascot, by the way, was the worst sort of caricature. So they're not going to have that name anymore. They have to think of a new name. This follows on the heel of the Washington Redskins dropping the name Redskins. And now they haven't picked a new name. They're just known as the Washington Football Team. But now we just have the Cleveland Baseball Team. So that's good news. That is a slight sign of progress. I'm going to wait another minute for the rest of y'all to come in. Pardon me. I'm not going to keep you guys all period long. I told you I have an assignment for you today, but I'm going to give you time to do it. Oh, I want to see if there's something else that I wanted to share with you. So I have a question for everyone in this class who is female identified. This is stuff that we went over last week because I really wanted to ask you this question and I forgot to. So I'm going to ask you guys now. When we covered over this idea of the cult of domesticity and how an ideal of womanhood and how you're supposed to behave and what your role in society is and where your place is, here's an honest question. Was that news to you? Or on some level, were you already familiar with these ideas?
It wasn't news. I knew that already.
Is there anybody, all of you who are female identified, is there any that this was like, what? I don't understand that. Is there any that this was strange or new or novel?
Not at all. It just all the ideas, like I was like, this seems so relevant to like everything that we hear about, like, you know, where a woman's place is and stuff. Like, you know, I mean, I think that women have progressed over time to realize that those ideas don't matter, but like you still see it in some places in society, you know, where this progression hasn't happened.
Right. I mean, yeah, and Becky says in the chat, it's rooted in our society. So, you know, one of the comments I made last week is, you know, that stuff was said about women's roles 150 years ago, and look where we are today. But really, they could have been said exactly about the 1950s. And programs like Father Knows Best, where the woman, and I should know the actress name, but she always was on scene with an apron and high heels. You know, and it's like, how does that work together? But that's within the lifetime of your grandparents. It's actually almost within my lifetime. And this is the way culture works. They don't have to sit you down and say, okay, pay attention. I'm going to put this on a blackboard and teach you the responsibilities and the roles of a woman. You get that through osmosis. You get that through, you just absorb it in 1,000 subtle little signals, you know, girls' toys and boys' toys. You know, what are the roles? And, you know, the blue and the pink. And, you know, there's all these tons of little tiny messages that you get that communicate these things. The pink tax, yeah, and that is real, actually. The pink tax is a real thing. I stopped at a truck stop once when I was driving to Ashland. And at truck stops, they have all the stuff that you need for self-care because, you know, you're on the road. And there was blue razors, disposable razors, and pink disposable razors. And the pink disposable razors cost twice as much. They're the same thing. They were totally the same thing. Pink versus blue. I mean, it was like, what? So that kind of stuff is just in the water we swim in, you know, and the person that named water wasn't a fish. The creature named water was not a fish. It's hard to see when it's just all around you all the time that you're even in it. You just take it for granted, right? It becomes part of your neural wiring, but it's there all the time. And to step out of it, I'll tell you, you know, the creature that named air was probably a fish because that's hostile territory out there. I live in water, I can't go into the air. And if I live on land, I can't, you know, I need water to survive, but not if I'm drowning in it. So you only recognize the stuff when it's foreign to you or threatening to you. But when it's native to you and deeply familiar, you often don't even see it or recognize it. And that's the way culture operates, and roles and responsibilities of us as gender-based beings, we just absorb it, and it becomes natural to us, or it becomes deeply conflicting in us. You know, my mother was not a good stay-at-home housewife. She was a deeply frustrated woman. She should have been a career woman. Really should have been. She's smarter than my father. My father was a career guy, right? She should have been out there in the world. But society told her, you can't do that and have a family. So she got a part-time job, which kept her sort of happy. And the rest of the time she was a mom. And that was the roles she was handed. And that is why people are upset about it. And it's why even though it doesn't make sense anymore, there's really very few jobs that have any honest rationale for being gender-based anymore, except for literally digging a ditch. But women can do that too. But, you know, there's very few. If you're driving a tractor, a woman can operate levers as well as a man can. I mean, it's, you know, when Rosie the Riveter went into factories, she built airplanes, right? Just as well as the men did. There's very few jobs that have any basis in gender specificity anymore. And eventually it will, just by its nature, sort of go away, but it's going to take a long time because we still swim in those waters. So because of that, because of that, the thing that I'm going to share with you today and the assignment thereof is totally along those lines. So let me make sure I've got it up because I've been bouncing around on my tabs. Okay. There you are. I'm going to share this with you. What this is a letter that was written to a newspaper. Now, remember what we looked at last time was Seneca Falls, the first women's rights convention. Well, there was another women's rights convention held in Worcester, Massachusetts. It looks like Worcester or Worcester, but they just pronounce it Worcester. They smash the syllables together. And so another event took place. And so we're in the modules and we're way down, 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 down. And it says, letter to the editor, write a reply. So let's read the letter. So in the olden days, when newspapers actually came to your doorstep, I'm talking 20 years ago, there would be a section of the newspaper, letters to the editor, and it's different from the comment section that is in newspapers today. The comment section that is newspapers today is just a toxic place to go. You should definitely not check out the comments because you do not see the best of humanity in those. But in newspapers of yore, letters to the editor actually was where people would debate and argue over issues and how things are reported and what points of views were. And they were worth reading, actually. I'm going to check this chat, though. And yes, Ellie, it is a new thing. The idea of women being equal to men physically, mostly now because there are machines that do the work. You know, look at the people bringing in big pallets of food, you know, heavy pallets of food in Fred Meyer. You know, they have little machines that help you do it. And, you know, a woman of 5 foot could operate those machines because they do the heavy lifting for you. And it's true, you're less like if you have an ethnic name. That is something that we have to deal with. I get a job. Oh, I'm glad that you guys are staying on top of this. Yep. And you know what? Okay, before I read this letter, do you guys, okay, your chat has driven me off on a tangent. Do you guys know where the whole term of hysteria comes from?
Yeah, you told us about that, didn't you?
Okay, yeah, it's from your uterus driving you crazy. Therefore, the solution to it is a hysterectomy, which takes the hysteria out of you. It's all completely nonsense and based on false science of the time. But the association with ghetto neighborhoods and incomes and the fact that you might have the name sounding of a person of color, that's what we started the year, and that is what we are going to continue to explore all the way for the rest of the year. And yes, Annabella, you are, and we're going to get to redlining. We're going to look at redlining in Portland. We're going to see how that worked here at home, but that's next semester. So stay tuned. All right, to the letter. Now that you guys are all warmed up, this is good. This is off topic, but in the right way. You guys are all, well, this is going to get you fired up even more. So this is the Worcester Convention, again, of women's rights. And this is a man who saw it reported about in the New York Daily Tribune, editor Horace Greeley. And so this gentleman wrote a letter back to the newspaper to discuss his feelings. And this is really, really pure. So I want you to pay attention, and I'm sure your hackles will go up, but that's what this assignment is about. So, Horace Greeley, Esquire, dear sir, I notice that in publishing the proceedings of the mothers of our republic, you refrain from all comment or remarks, which is a good journalist. Just observe. I enjoy hearing your opinion and am particularly anxious to know what you really think of this late movement in favor of women's rights. Notice the quotes. Now, I am at a loss to what the women of Worcester Convention are aiming at. It is clear that if we are going to live or have any private comforts, there must be dinners cooked, children's faces must be watched, and there must be a home to which the mind of the weary husband will turn to bear him up and urge him on in his toils for the inmates of that sanctuary, and that sanctuary, of course, being the home. So the inmates of the sanctuary Yeah, Ellie, just stay tuned. We've just begun. The inmates of that sanctuary, that's the family. A home where he can, for a time, forget in his wife's and children's society the toils and troubles of this weary world. A home which he can never leave without carrying with him a new grace, a new strength, drawn from women's influence to enable him victoriously and manfully to withstand the trials and temptations of the world. Now, if women are given the right to vote, to electioneer, to become stateswomen, why, it's an incontrovertible fact, that is, if they attend properly to politics, that dinners must go uncooked, children's faces unwashed, and home be forgotten, unless indeed the men exchange duties with them, as was proposed at the convention, and stay home and help their wives cook and wash dishes. So far from thinking women slaves, I do not see how it can appear in such a light to any thinking mind, any true-hearted woman. There is something so superior about women that one would shrink as from a profanation at the idea of her mingling in public with the sterner and worser sex. That's guys, sterner and worser sex. A spiritualization that raises her far above the intrigues of politicians and the vulgarity of rowdies. A superiority which, if not accustomed in words, is confessed in actions, even by men who, however degraded they may be, refrain from the slightest word or action that could be commented upon in the presence of a woman. In other words, guys behave better when there's women around. But we don't want women around because guys behave so badly. Pardon me. The women of the Worcester Convention seem to have entirely overlooked the immense power given to women in the form of home influence. What power can be greater than a mother's holy and elevated example, which has given to the world so many shining lights, than a mother's gentle but impressive remonstrance to a straying son, or a wife's earnest pleadings to a wayward husband? Of all of which would be of no avail the moment a woman condescended to become a rowdy senator or an intriguing politician. For my part, I look on women as missionary angels, sent among men to remind them of their high calling and high duties. It is not because men think that women have no intellect, etc., that they consider it inexpedient for them to vote. No, it is common sense directs them to this judgment. They know that there are two great duties to be performed in the world: public and domestic duties, outside the house and inside the house. And as no one can deny but that men are stronger than women, the formerly generally choose the more laborious and inferior duties. The men, he says, choose the more laborious and inferior duties. So it's inferior to go outside the house and have a job. We must also remember that if women gain these absurd rights, they would be obliged to maintain them. And this they have not the strength to do. I'm glad you guys are following this in the chat. For which of the women at the Worcester Convention could knock a man down if he chose to stand up? And what man would come forward to protect a woman as long as she claimed to herself the right of self-protection? So this is saying women shouldn't be out in public because men might beat them. It would be well enough for the ladies to endeavor to protect themselves if it were practicable, but what rowdy if he met Miss Dr. So-and-so out on a sick call at 12 o'clock at night would stand to listen to her explanation of women's rights? I acknowledge there are some gross injustices done to women in regard to property and their very low wages. And if it were to reform such abuses as these that women held conventions, it would be laudable. But such injustices seem to take up but a small share of their attention, and strange as it may appear, their ambition seems to aim principally at gaining the right to be just as uninteresting and bad as men. One of the ladies, Lucretia Mott, outdid even the 19th century when she thought the inspired apostles, the companions of our blessed Savior, might have imbibed some of the ignorance of the age. Truly, we of the 19th century are wondrous wise, or either, I fear, we are imbibing some of the infidelity and self-conceit of this same wonderful age. There can be no fault found in Miss Lucy Stone's desire not to have it placed on her gravestone that she was relict of somebody, as she can easily avoid being relict of anybody. That's a word we don't use anymore, but it means a thing that has survived from an earlier period or in a primitive form. So Lucy Stone does not desire to have on her gravestone that she has survived, she was a person that survived from an earlier age or in a primitive form, as she can easily avoid this by simply not marrying anybody. That's what he's saying. I am sorry, dear sir, to have trespassed so long upon your valuable time. But as I knew that on any subject, you are always willing to give both sides a chance, as we Yankees say, I could not refrain from the above remarks. Yours sincerely, A. So before I go through this about what I want you to do in a letter back, and so you guys are going on and on about angels and demons. Okay, so it's a little sideways. You guys can go to this on Canvas right now. There's the heading, letter to the editor. In fact, do that. Go there right now in Canvas. Because what I want you to do is, you can do it in chat or you can shout it out. I would like you to call out or point out some things in here that you think, well, not exactly the truth. And by the way, not to be completely one-sided in this, you know, some of you may agree. I don't know. So you can defend or not defend, but attack some of these opinions. But whichever you decide, you're going to need to pull out some lines from this to back up what you're saying. So it might have something to do with, there's something so superior about women that would make one shrink as from a profanation, meaning, you know, something that's terribly profane, at the idea of her mingling in public with guys, right? Is there something so superior about women? He certainly puts them on a pedestal. A superiority which, if not acknowledged in words, is confessed in actions, even by men who act terrible normally, but then they suddenly straighten up when there's a woman around. Ellie, you have your hand raised.
I just want to say, I find it really funny that he mentions, oh, dinners need to be cooked or children need to be, what did he say, washed or something like that? As if like the
Faces.
husband couldn't do it himself.
Well, you know, this is a time when there were stark gender roles, and that wasn't a guy's job to do. It was a woman's job to do those things. And if you were around in 1850, you'd probably want to find an enlightened partner that might be understanding of this, but this was a lot more typical. But we are in 2020, and I know that some of this stuff is still around. But what I want you guys to do is write a letter responding to this. So, dear sir, in regards to A's letter, I want to argue a few points perhaps, but use A's letter. Take whatever ideas in here, either you feel most supportive of or least supportive of, and quote those, and then state why they're either right or wrong. Right? And any persuasive communication, you need to acknowledge that you're hearing what they're saying. You're not making up what they're saying. You're hearing actually what they're saying or reading it. And then state why it doesn't make sense or why it's wrong or why it's right. Right? Because that's what makes your effort more persuasive, because you're taking them point for point. So you don't have to go through every single paragraph here, because there are some threads that you can sort of put things underneath. But what is it in here that really, really, really calls you out? So are men just really lazy, Rowan? That they are just lazy. So, does this make sense to you guys? Do you have any questions about it? How amazing women are like when we... Yeah, have you ever heard the song W-O-O-M-A-N? I'm not a good singer, but it's a great song, and it talks about just all the thing that women do, and with a smile on their face. And it's a mildly sarcastic song to a very tuneful. Maybe I have to find that song for you, because I don't know that it's well known anymore. So, so.
I have a question.
I'm sorry?
How large needs to be the reply? What is the maximum?
How long?
Yeah, how long?
So that's a question that I get asked a lot, and I never exactly know how to answer it. Here's the deal. It needs to be more than one paragraph, because one paragraph you can't really say anything convincing. So go through that letter and find the parts to you that most need a response, and do your best job to respond to those points. However long that takes is however long it needs to be. Okay, one paragraph, I will tell you, isn't enough, but I'm not going to say it must be 6 paragraphs or 8 paragraphs. However long it needs to be for you to adequately respond to a letter like that. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much. Yeah,
yep.
Makes sense.
Yep, when we all start out as women at one point. Yep, that is true. Except that guys have that extra gene that flips it. And if you did see Body Worlds, that's kind of amazing exhibit, actually. That actually really is. There you see a body, and that's what we all are. So
it's really interesting knowing that, like, they're real.
Yeah, they were real people, actually, and they agreed to donate their body. Heck, I'd do that. That sounds kind of awesome. I look like this awesome figure forever after that, except I'm turned into plastic. So, does this make sense to you guys? Any questions? You know, you guys are all properly warmed up for that, so I expect really good letters from you. Next class, which is Thursday, I will not keep you very long. There's something I do that's seasonally appropriate every year. And it's one of those moments in time. And if you know what it is, please don't give it away. But it's one of those moments in time where ordinary people act in a really extraordinary way. And it's one of those things that just gives me faith that we'll make it, because sometimes ordinary people do exactly the right thing. And so I'll share that with you on Thursday, but not yet. So JJ, what you do, you see that letter that I just read? Okay, pretend you're writing a letter to the editor. You're responding to A's letter. And you want to present either a succinct support of that letter, which I'm guessing you probably don't want to do, but I don't want to I don't want to prejudge here. Or if you disagree with A, then do it logically and rationally and convincingly, and take their points. Don't take all of them, but take their points and refute them. Okay? So, are there any other questions? So if you guys are satisfied with what you need to do, don't have any other questions, I only kept you for half an hour. Huh? I told you I wasn't going to keep you for that long. You guys can go if you want. I will hang around for quite a while longer, just in case you do have questions, but otherwise you're on your own, and I'll see you on Thursday. Okay?
I will stay
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Gottschall.
thank
Have a
you.
Wonderful day, people that are heading out.
Okay.
How are you, Mr. Gottschall?
I'm good. It's sunny outside. That helps my mood.
It's cloudy outside for me.
You're in the wrong place.
Can I show you something?
Sure. Oh, hold on. That's a big B.
No, it's the sharp S sound.
Oh, is it? So is
Yeah,
that a musical?
No, it's a German character. It's a
Ah.
German letter.
Hmm. And it's the
Hmm.
sharp S.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean?
Like the German word for street is a Straße, and this is the symbol that they use, because if you took this out, there would be just like two S's.
So that's to take a place of two S's?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. I don't know German at all. Do you speak German?
And a teensy weensy little teeny tiny little bit.
Okay. Well, we've had some good German speakers go to ACMA in the past.
Do any of them still go here?
Nope. Graduated. Guy named Oliver, who now is studying in Germany, actually.
I've had some conversations with Miss Duplessis in
Mhm.
German. Miss Duplessis is cool.
Does she speak German as well? Oops, you just froze. You're glitching, Ryan, you're glitching. Oh, now you're back.
Uh,
Okay, so get busy writing that letter, Ryan. You can finish it by the time class time is over.
Okie dokie.
Okay. Give me any guys give me a shout out if you have any questions.